both the books and the film and psych education. Everybody scroll up, can see all the links.
Great. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Andrea, and thank you all for being here today. Thanks to the DBSA of California to give us this chance, not to talk with you, but to sit and be here with you through this couple of hours has really been remarkable for me. Really remarkable. And it makes me feel like, I'm going to come on as the psychiatrist and I'm supposed to talk like I know something. And compared to what you all know, I don't know nothing, because I've learned from people like you in 30 years of practice. That's what I learned. That's where I learned most of what I know. And sitting with you all again through a couple of hours here reminds me of how much I learned in that way. I feel deep respect for you all and gratitude for having had that opportunity. And, I had some things that I thought, well, okay, this is what I want to try to convey in my opportunity, in my chunk of time. And it's like, poof, nah. Instead, I'm going to talk about some of the things that came to mind as I listened for the last couple of hours. And the biggest one is, and I wrote this on my website years ago, and I'm realizing, oh yeah, that was a big deal. I wrote a couple of pages on depression is not a moral weakness. Depression is not a moral weakness. And that couple of pages on my website got a lot of attention, which made me realize, yeah, this is a really important message. And I heard that throughout again today. So I know that you all know this, and yet I thought perhaps maybe I can give you just a little bit more in the way of resources. Thank you, Alec, for a really nice job on your piece of work. Some more resources to kind of undergird that belief that depression is not a moral weakness. And those are some of the amazing new things that are happening in terms of research about mood disorders. I'm a bipolar disorder specialist mostly, but as has been mentioned, I think of mood disorders as existing on a spectrum from plain depression to bipolar disorders, and there's people all the way along in between. So when I think about mood disorders and what the research is, I think it applies almost all the way across all of this. Anyway, so in terms of bipolar disorder, what causes bipolar disorder? Where did Sarah's bipolar brain come from? What's different about her brain? And there are at least 4 major realms of research that are really cooking these days. And we're excited because we're going to try to present them in this documentary that we're working on. So I'm just going to summarize them now, and I'll just try to be brief because I'd really be just happy to answer questions. Suffice to say, the 4 are inflammation. It's amazing how our inflammatory system and our immune system have come to be central in the story of a mood disorder that you think brain, but no, it's not just brain, it's the whole immune and gut interaction that is playing a deep role in mood disorders. So what's going on in terms of inflammatory responses generally and in the gut microbiome in particular is a fascinating territory that's getting lots of attention these days. Just one study to illustrate that. At Johns Hopkins, a research team there took a group of people who had been young adolescents who'd been hospitalized with mania and just looked to see if there was something different about their gut microbiome compared to people who were admitted for other reasons in other parts of the hospital. And sure enough, they found what they thought was sort of a pattern of more of particular organisms in the people who are admitted with bipolar mania. They then showed that the people who had the most of those microbiotic changes were the most likely to get readmitted in the next couple of years. I think it was a year or so. So their gut microbiome was predictive of their clinical course. And then I think, as far as I know, this is just a pilot so far. I'm waiting for the replication in the bigger study. Then they randomized many of these people who had been hospitalized to get a probiotic per day or a placebo. And then they watched, I think this went on for at least a year, and watched to see, can we prevent rehospitalization with a probiotic? And the answer was yes. So I'm sure you're all going, whoa, what was in that stuff? Tell me quick. And so we're not ready to be going, okay, that's the stuff. this needs to be replicated and needs to be understood further. But I just want you to know that there's something going on there in terms of understanding gut microbiome and treatment of mood disorders generally. Very exciting. Secondly, well, to tell you that there's a relationship between hormones and mood certainly doesn't need any explanation. Why is it, for example, that mood disorders generally, and particularly bipolar disorders, show up in late adolescence and early adulthood? It's because right around puberty, things start to change and people finally have the changes manifest enough by the time they're 18, 19, 20 for it to actually to show up in their experience. For Sarah, it was 21, which is a little on the late side. One of the folks on our team for our film is General Greg Martin. He actually has a bipolar brain that became clear late in his life, but he was a very successful military man. He became a 2-star general before he finally had a manic episode. And his mood stuff was just building all his life. So it can be very late, but usually it's more like 18 to 20, and it looks like it's a manifestation of things having to do with our reproductive hormones, estrogen and testosterone. So there's a whole world of research now going on in terms of maybe there's a different way to go after mood. Maybe there's something having to do with, you may have heard of brexanolone. It's a treatment for postpartum depression, requires injections at this point. There's an oral version that is awaiting FDA approval, but it's like all of a sudden out of almost nowhere, we're looking at how hormonal interventions could treat mood disorders. Very interesting, very active area of research. Third out of 4 here is the realm of genetics. And it's really complicated territory, and yet one message is very clear now, and that is unlike Parkinson's, which has some rather strong genetic predictions, and Huntington's disease, which has a single gene disorder. It's turned out over the last couple of decades, to our disappointment in some ways, that mood disorders like depression and bipolar disorder are polygenic. Many genes, each of which has a small effect, not one. So mood disorders are polygenic, particularly bipolar disorder, even though they're strongly genetic and clearly run in families. There isn't a single gene for it, there are many. And so it hasn't been possible to chase like the gene and figure out the treatment that would change what that gene does in the way that we had hoped a couple decades ago. Nevertheless, we're still looking at what's different about the genes and getting more insight through them in terms of the mechanisms of bipolar disorder. One of which is the last of these 4. So that was inflammation, hormones, genetics, and the last is chronobiology, the influence, the relationship between our circadian rhythm and mood. And that is a very active area of research, particularly in bipolar disorder, but also applicable in plain depressions that are not bipolar. Very active area of research. And what's exciting is it's yielding treatment opportunities, including something called social rhythm therapy. So if we have time, maybe I'll talk a little bit about more social rhythm therapy. It's very similar to it's one ingredient in Sarah's PECs, and in the techniques. I heard Matthew talking about the importance of maintaining a regular sleep rhythm. So actually, probably most of you, I would guess, have already figured out sleep has a big impact on mood course, and you need to be mindful about how you manage it. So chronotherapy is the 4th of these realms. I guess partly what I'm trying to convey is, in the face of everything that you all have gone through, there is still room. In fact, there's progressively more room for excitement about what's being learned and the way that that learning can be turned into treatment opportunities. So I think that's my main message based on what I heard from you today. I've got a couple others, but I'm going to kind of stop there because I'd be more interested in hearing from you. and while you're thinking about what you might put in the chat, for example, I'll just tell you one more thing, and that is Tim Barry came on and said, mental health practitioners, we have, I think he put it, a sketchy past, and psychiatrists particularly have kind of a sketchy past. And I'm thinking that most of you, or many of you, and I fear that it's most of you, may have had kind of sketchy experiences with psychiatrists. If that's true, I apologize for my profession. And I am pleased to tell you that I think it's getting better. The people who are going into psychiatry nowadays, it used to be kind of the left wing outside crowd of the medical school students. But now it's the really sharp kids who are going into psychiatry because they're realizing this is a cool field to be part of. So I think there is hope there too. I think I'm going to stop there with one last plug for Sarah's book. It is so good. I read it standing in the kitchen when I took it out of the shipping container that she had sent it to me in. All the pages. It is so good. It is so gripping. And it is such a brilliant account of this bipolar 2 version of mood disorders. I recommend it just as an amazing read, as well as something that might be rather encouraging, seeing somebody else's experience and seeing how she can function now.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Jim. Thank you so much. I already have some questions for you guys, which is wonderful. It's always so inspiring to hear, we think about how far we've come, like Sarah said, but then to think that there's actually still more that might help us in the future. Whenever I get down and out about my own condition, my mother always says, well, you don't know what's coming. You don't know what you don't know. You don't know what has yet to be discovered. So that's really inspiring to hear. So couple of questions. Let's see here. Sarah, do you still have symptoms? And if so, how do you cope?
I feel like I'm one of these people that's exquisitely fortunate with medication, because I know it doesn't work. It took me 7 meds and, Jim's helpful diagnosis, a long time, 25 years to get to that place. But I think partly why I'm pretty stable is because in addition to those medications, I am really rigorous about brain care. I mean, as an example, family went to Europe over the summer, which was the privileged thing. I didn't go because I was concerned about circadian rhythms and the 6-hour time difference. And I know that's real. Like Jim could speak more about that. I try to get to bed by 10. I'm going to be in bed by 11 at the latest, lights out. I stopped drinking. I never was a heavy drinker. I came from a family of some heavy drinkers, but yeah, I drank pretty consistently. I started to notice that with my meds, it was not helping. And I don't drink anymore. It's not like I have to be cold turkey. If it's a glass of wine once a week, it's fine. But I've just I think what's happened evolved over time, because I'm also old. See these guys? I've been dealing with this for a long time, is that I've just gotten more and more curious about the impact of behaviors. Like, what if I'm doing more sugar or less? What if I'm sleeping more or less? What if I'm drinking more? And noticing like, wow, these things really have an impact. So while I don't think that, I know that if I'm in the midst of a bipolar depression, going to bed on time is not going to fix me. Not stopping sugar is not going to heal that. But I think as a preventive, and I'd be interested to hear what Jim has to say about this too. I think as a preventive, those behaviors can really make a difference. And I don't want to like freak anybody out. You got to do them all at once. But over time, as you start to develop things that you learn are useful for your body. Another one, this gut brain thing is really true. So, having more, drinking more kombucha. This is stuff right here that I've been drinking. I'm not doing an advertisement for that, but just to say it's probiotics. So just being more mindful of like, okay, what can it's kind of a fine-tuned thing here, this bipolar body. So let's be really mindful of what we can do preventively. What do you think, Dr. Phelps?
Thank you.
I'll just add, it could be easily overwhelming to think about all the things that you need to do and be careful of, and gets in the way of actually being able to enjoy life in a rich way. So we could try to rank order the things in terms of which of these things are the most important. And there's one that rises to the top, I think, particularly in light of this new chronotherapy research. And this may not be true for everybody here, but I suspect for the majority of people here, having a regular bedtime and a regular rise time is an important way to lock in your circadian rhythm. So this is the main ingredient in so-called social rhythm therapy, a regular bedtime and a regular rise time. Once you have been able to establish them, then cranking them in the direction of going to bed earlier and getting up earlier, like closer to the sun, is kind of a second step in social rhythm therapy that I think helps stabilize your rhythm further, because now the sun's rhythm and your rhythm are in sync or closer. And when they're not, it tends to decrease the power of your own circadian rhythm to drive sleep. So you can strengthen your circadian rhythm by having a regular pattern and by having it closer to the sun. That's the core ingredients, I think, in social rhythm therapy. And I think it is one of the most important ingredients in self-care of mood disorders, especially those that are on that spectrum from plain old depression to bipolar disorder, especially for the people over in the who have more bipolarity mixed in to their experience of depression. Sarah and I've been working on this lingo. How did I do there, Sarah? I think we got it. Okay, thank you. So I think that's, for many people, not everyone, one of the most important. And then the rest of Sarah's program, so physical activity, emotional health, creativity, and a spiritual component, her PECS program, I wouldn't dare prioritize them, because I think for everyone, those might be somewhat different. The circadian component, I think, obviously, I think that is one of the most important. So I'm just trying to help, if you're going to think about the things that are most important to you and rank order them so that you don't have to containerize your life too much.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. As a future psychologist, right up there with sleep is just so important. Dr. Phelps, I have a question for you, and I have a question for both of you. So question is, how can I talk to a doctor who doesn't have a concept or understanding of the bipolar spectrum? I know Sarah struggled with this. I was very lucky. I took your book to my psychiatrist and said, I think I have bipolar disorder. And she said, sweetie, I know that. I was very young. So she was way ahead of me. I know Sarah struggled with finding doctors who got it. What would you suggest saying, say you have a psychiatrist you really trust and you really fit with, and they don't have a concept? What could you recommend?
Yeah, I wrote an essay once about how to talk with doctors, because nowadays it's very hard to get one. So having a psychiatrist, psychiatric nurse practitioner, you may be lucky just to have them. It's not easy to just go, well, I'm going to go off and get a second opinion, or maybe I'm going to shop around. You may be effectively stuck with this person, in which case you end up having to kind of help them figure out how to help you. So number one, learning a lot yourself, so that you feel more kind of solid with, here are the reasons why I think this is what I've got diagnostically, and here are the reasons why I think this treatment might be a good idea for me. So learning a lot to really be secure in those beliefs about what you're going to go and present, that will help. So number one, learning. Number two, it may be very difficult, but it may be very difficult, and treating the person with respect in terms of recognizing that they are there trying to help you, even though sometimes it may not be really obvious. So operating with the presumption that they are there to try to help you, and what you're trying to do is align with them. Tim Berry called it the collaboration, right? The importance of collaboration. You're trying to align with them in this attempt to help you. And so you're trying to sidle up to them and say, I know what you're trying to do here is to help me, and I really appreciate what you've done and everything that you're doing on my behalf. And I'm wondering if, then you kind of scratch your head, kind of Dumbo Columbo, if you remember the Columbo movie show. I'm just wondering what if we headed off in this direction? Do you think that might help? Now, that might sound kind of obsequious or like putting yourself in a one-down position, and in some respects it is, but it's strategic in order to go somewhere. That's the short answer to that question.
I think that's
if I could just add, Andrew, real quick. I think, being self-advocates with our doctors, a lot of them don't know what we know. Most of them don't know if you're talking about the bipolar spectrum. So that's why I literally walked in with Jim's book to my psychiatrist and said, here on page 52, it looks like low dose lithium might help with my lamictal. What do you think? And he knew Jim from International Society of Bipolar Disorders. He'd heard his talks and he was like, let's try it. I mean, he would not have thought of that. Turns out this is working very well for me. I can't prescribe, right? But the point being just, I think we need to be our own advocates, bring Jim's book, bring my book, bring whatever book, and find that sweet spot where you can help. I know we have another story for the film. Our director is on the line here, Bonnie Walsh. We interviewed a young man in his 20s and his mother, who said that they basically did that. They took the book, they figured out, they thought they knew his diagnosis. Their doctor and therapist didn't have a clue. Luckily, they were open to it. And now he has bipolar spectrum diagnosis and the right meds, and he's doing great. So yeah, we got to advocate for ourselves.
Definitely. So Jim, it looks like now we've talked about 3 people in the last 2 minutes who have taken your book into the doctor's office and said, hey doc, what do you think about this? And it worked. So that's amazing. That's truly amazing.
I will say, and it sounds like people are plugging my book, but the book was invited by the publisher because I'd written this website, and the website was my attempt at self-defense. 20 years ago, I was regarded as an outlier because I talked about this bipolar spectrum, and so I said, well, let me just write down on a website and I can stick in the references to all these assertions that I'm making. And I'm not an outlier. I was trying to defend myself. Well, 20 years later, finally, this spectrum way of thinking about mood disorders is finally now getting relatively solidly established amongst mood specialists around the world. So it's been a long haul waiting for that validation. The book just happened to come along in the middle of it. I'm very, very glad that it's been of use to some people.
Yeah, and the clinician's book as well is wonderful. So there's a question that someone had that both of you might be able to answer. It's more of a bigger picture question. So bringing up and discussing building and having social support, not necessarily peer support, for people with bipolar disorder or depression, housing, community, emergency housing, employment, access to treatment. How do we deal with, and this might be kind of out of the realm, but I think it's a good topic to discuss. How do we deal with those sort of more basic needs? If you think of the hierarchy of needs, those that are sort of fundamental.
We're going to defer to you, Jim, on that first shot, because I know you've been in the public health domain of trying to make kind of amplify your impact because of the dearth of psychiatrists, not enough out there. So what have you noticed that's working?
Well, first of all, I have not looked specifically at this area. So when asked a question, the first thing I want to do is go, well, I'm sure some smart people have written a recent review about this. I should go read that before I say anything. I don't have a prepared answer for that. And the reason I'm fumbling is because this is a huge social issue. This takes us almost outside of medicine and into politics and economics. Medicine is being forced to medicalize social problems and then treat them, which is very unfair to medicine, and we don't do a very good job of it. So housing and financial means in order that people have enough food to eat and shelter and are warmly clothed, it's like, this shouldn't be up to doctors to have to try to figure this out. So I think that's my short fumbling attempt at an answer to that question.
Yeah, and I do think it's a very hard question to answer, but I do kind of want to give it some airtime because it is so important. I think we all know that, and it should be kind of in the back of all of our minds how we can do that, not to support others emotionally, but just in a more systemic way, how we can support them. What tips do you have for someone recently diagnosed with bipolar disorder who doesn't know where to begin to get help? So obviously they've been diagnosed, they've gotten that much help. After that, what kind of help should we recommend that they receive?
You want me to go? Well, I assume if they got the diagnosis, then maybe hopefully they have they're getting medication. And I talk, hopefully, maybe. I mean, I talk as someone who's a little bit got religion because, like I said, I was against meds. I'm like this, crunchy, earthy granola, all the stereotypes. living in the woods, and I didn't want to do any medicine. And I had my own psychiatric issues because my mom was depressed on meds and I didn't want to be her. So that's a whole other book. God bless her. She's in the next world now. But at any rate, so it took me a long time to accept the need for medication. And then once I was willing to, I was lucky to find meds that work. And that's like a miracle. So hopefully if they have a diagnosis, I would encourage them to try to find some kind of something that's going to work there. I learned from two of the other doctors involved in the film, Dr. Holly Schwartz and Tricia Supes, this a four-pronged approach. I put it in a diamond. I always put in diamonds. But one is medication. The other is support. We've all been talking about like your support network, social support, friends, get them circled around you. At least find a few people that you feel comfortable sharing with. In the beginning, it may be only a couple people, but building the social network. The third one is therapy, if that's helpful, if you have access to it. And then the fourth is PECS, is basically self-care, basic whatever, though, as an example, when I first figured out my bipolar disorder diagnosis, and I got on Jim's website, Jim, this is a big plug for you, psycheducation.org. I learned a lot of stuff there that I didn't know. For example, you got to get to bed before 10. You need to get off these devices. If you're going to stay on the devices, use amber glasses. Why do we want amber glasses? Because they block the blue light. Why do you want to block the blue light? Because they screw up our circadian rhythms. So I think there's one of the good, I always tell people like, they'll say, my kid just got a bipolar diagnosis. And I'll say, great, that's such good news. I'm only being half facetious because now there's a lot of stuff you can do. Send them to Jim's website, look at all the, ways you can be proactive in your own care, getting to bed, amber glasses, gut brain, if you're somebody who wants to be proactive, there are things you can do and it's treatable, which is great. Not everything is. Jim, you can tell your story about why you got into bipolar right now. And I think the other thing is DBSA, make that connection. And I also recently, there's a guy called Paul English. If any of you remember the kayak travel app, he's the kayak guy. And he is also bipolar 1, and he started something called the Bipolar Social Club. You can look it up. Andrew, you can maybe put it in the chat. And if you're bipolar and you want to, you can get on the e-serve, the e-list, that listserv, which I found really helpful. People are, it feels like you're part of a community and we're sharing resources. There it is. Yeah, so you can join that. So there's more and more. But Jim, why did you decide to be a bipolar doc? There was something good about that, right? So.
I'll take that. Thank you, Sarah. Because I feel like sort of cheated in psychiatry. There are lots of things in psychiatry that are hard to help people get really a lot better. But mood disorders and bipolar disorders in particular, people can go from really, really ill in terms of debilitated. Their life is a mess. We just listened to Matthew's story today, and in the way he describes it, he's doing so well now. It's just a gift to us to hear. Same with Sarah. But starting from doing so badly and now doing so well, as a psychiatrist, that's a privilege to be traveling along with that and to try to facilitate it. So first thing is, as Sarah says, new diagnosis of bipolar disorder. Oh, good. Well, the prognosis for most people is very good. So taking encouragement, making sure that you're comfortable with that diagnosis. There are more diagnostic assessments that can be done. There's a couple in my books. The bipolar spectrum diagnostic scale was one that Sarah did, recognizing that family history, age of onset, course of illness, how bumpy is it, and did you get worse on antidepressants? All of those are part of the diagnostic assessment that belongs to bipolar disorders. So being comfortable with the diagnosis. And then when you're looking at treatment options, first, we start with the ones that have the fewest side effects and the least long-term risks if they have enough clout to address your symptoms. So non-pill approaches first. Sarah's physical, emotional, creative, spiritual attention to these factors, her PECS. Social rhythm therapy in terms of a regular bedtime and a regular rise time. Those are like the foundational ingredients. And then on top of that, for probably most people with bipolar disorders, we don't actually know how many of those people, like particularly in the middle of the mood spectrum, could be treated just with PECs and social support and social rhythm therapy and don't need lamotrigine or low-dose lithium. But I'm fond of lamotrigine and low-dose lithium because they have lamotrigine, for example, no long-term risks that we know of, and it's been around for several decades. Low-dose lithium has a whole different risk profile compared to high-dose, full-dose lithium. The latter has some known risks. The low-dose lithium has very few. If you're one of the 9 people out of 10 who can tolerate it without feeling dull and flat and blah, which unfortunately about 1 person in 10 does. So I think in terms of when we start about thinking about treatment options, I'm thinking really long-term. You don't necessarily have to take these for all of your life. You need to take them long enough to get your life really well established and know what life is like when mood is stable. And then you can talk with your provider about very carefully tapering things off if you're determined to. So we're not talking about lifelong necessarily. We're talking something that's going to take a while though. So let's use the things that have low risk and low potential for side effects. I start there, not necessarily the big guns with the greatest demonstrated efficacy for symptoms, unless your symptoms are so bad and so acute that we need to do it that way.
Yeah. Can I just add to like a practical example? So when I had my preemie twins, I did not yet have a bipolar diagnosis. One preemie twin had a breathing issue. Being mom, was up all night long with that kid with breathing treatments to keep her alive. Would I do that again? Yes. However, I didn't know that sleep deprivation was the recipe for disaster for bipolar brain. I hadn't got my diagnosis yet, nor had I read Jim's, website and all the stuff we know now about circadian rhythms. So how would I do it differently now that I have that? If I'd had the diagnosis then, well, get some help. Don't be the only person giving those breathing treatments in the middle of the night. Okay, husband, you're on. Whereas at that point, I don't know, I was like, it had to be me, because that's just my personality and because the kid wanted mom, right? But now I would know, it's like, you know what? No, your life is at risk here and your kids are going to need you without a bipolar breakdown. So you get the partner, if you're lucky enough to have one who will get out of bed, or get some friends, get somebody. You have to take this seriously. Like this sleep thing really makes a difference. So I think having understanding and respecting, I call it respect for my bipolar, respecting that diagnosis and knowing that these kinds of behaviors really can make a life and death difference. That's good.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Somebody's
So it's
nodding her head. Rosemary's going, yep.
Yeah, for a lot of bubble dolls here, right?
Yeah.
One quick medical question and one for both of you to wrap up with. So someone's interested in kombucha and probiotics, as we were talking about, but they mentioned that there's sugar in some of these. Water kefirs from sugar. Would that amount of sugar be a concern, do you think?
Unknown.
Fair enough. Fair enough, but worth asking. And it's good that that person's concerned also about what other things they're putting into their body that might cause inflammation. So that's good to see.
You can do probiotics without sugar though. I mean, yogurt, plain yogurts, sauerkraut, miso, there's lots.
Yeah.
Make your own kefir.
Wow, cool. We'll do that on a separate education day. Hands-on. Great. So one last question at the same time, Sally's going to put the link to the evaluation in the chat. Please fill it out with your full information so you can be automatically entered in this drawing to win an iPad or a iPhone or a Kindle, your choice.
And Andrea, before last question or before the end, can we also just put a little plug for the upcoming film?
Yeah,
which you're also on the Science Advisory Board of?
Go right ahead. Yeah.
Andrew's on the Science Advisory Board. I just wanted to put the link in the chat because it's interesting too.
We'll put it again for sure.
It's brainstormthefilm.com. And we're going to have a meet the team coming up of Brainstorm the Film, including Jim and the filmmakers, Emmy Award-winning filmmakers and PBS documentarians and some other really impressive bipolar research docs, and then others with lived experience, like Jim said, our General Greg Martin and Dr. Deva Kubushan. For you, those of you in California may remember, she was acting Surgeon General, et cetera, earlier. So we're excited about it. It's going to be, its intention is to be the first of its kind. It's specifically about the bipolar spectrum, and it's going to include 3 things. One, people with lived experience, then secondly, cutting edge science, and then breakthrough treatments. So I want you guys to know about that.
Yeah.
And there it is. She put it up there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Promises to be really, you missed when we were talking, we put all your links in, but we can put them again. Yeah, promises to be really a boon for bipolar disorder and getting the word out there about so many things, treatments, knowledge, just connecting people. So my last one, and you guys are going to jump all over this, I know. What books, podcasts, videos, or other media do you recommend for understanding and overcoming mental health challenges? We've got the books, we've got everybody's books, we've got everybody's websites, got everybody's films. Anything else that might have made a difference to you personally, professionally, Sarah and Jim?
Oh, well, good question. I mean, I don't, I'm kind of like one note person, I guess. The first book that really inspired me and changed my orientation in life was Kay Jamison's An Unquiet Mind, which just blew me away because she described what it was like inside my brain. Like I was just talking to you guys, broken brain. It was the first person that I ever met. First thing I'd read that was like, oh, she gets it. Then I wrote my book with that intention to be the Kay Jamison for bipolar 2, for people to have a sense that, okay, somebody gets me. And, Jim's books, all of Jim's books, which are on psycheducation.org. What else have I been listening to and reading? Drawing a blank right now besides DBSA. And
I'll jump in.
Pardon?
I'll jump in.
Yeah, thanks.
I am a believer in science and that there are advances that are taking place and that watching them advance is very exciting. So simply by Google searching and then being very careful about the quality of information that you're being given. There's just so much information out there and so much that is moving quickly. I'm actually more of a fan of following the research as it's emerging rather than waiting for books which tend to be almost out of date by the time they show up. So watching for emerging literature by Googling things that you're really interested in, and then being very careful about the quality of the information that you're being given there.
So then that's reminding me then, I think ISBD, the International Society of Bipolar Disorders, that their conference is open to the public. And I think if you're a person with lived experience, you get to register for cheap, because I just did. And there's, it's a lot, it's breaking news, right? Breaking science, cutting edge science there. That's going to be over like summer solstice in Chicago, but I think it's hybrid. I don't remember exactly.
I think it's only in person this year.
Is it only in person?
The first year
Andrew is a
that's
big ISBD person, so you
Yeah.
can speak more about that, but there's a lot of really interesting talks, including yours, right?
Yeah, it's in
Andrew?
Chicago. So if anybody's local or wants to take a road trip, come on down. I think all three of us will be there, right?
Yeah, we're going to be there. And a lot of these people that we've been interviewing for the film, really interesting folks that are doing, themes seem to be inflammation, circadian rhythms, mitochondria. Bonnie, tell me what else in the chat. What else have we been, there's 3 or 4 like major themes, hormonal, like Jim said, perinatal.
So DBSA will certainly do a screening of the film when it comes out. I hope that everyone will come back and see it. It'll be really great. Maybe have
Oh yeah,
another
that'd
talk.
be great.
But yeah, I mean, I can't thank both of you enough. This is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. This runs very much in my family, actually gallops through my family, I think is more appropriate. So can't thank you both enough. Again, everybody take a minute to get the survey link out of the chat so you can fill it out. Any closing words from my partners in crime here, from Sally, Jeff, Sarah, Jim? Any last words? Any last questions?
Just thank you so much. I really
Thank you
appreciate
guys
this
so much.
network.
Yeah,
And
thank you,
this
Mike.
Andrew,
This was
everybody.
fantastic.
Paul, thanks for inviting us.
Thank you. Jeff?
I was just gonna say this was fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all so much. All right. I hope everybody has a beautiful day. Go engage in some of that wonderful self-care we've heard so much about. Do something for you, do something for someone else, do something for your mind, for your body, for your soul, and have a beautiful, beautiful weekend. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, got it. Oh, wait, I want to open link. Okay. Sorry, I'm trying to get out of here. Oh, I wrote it down. Sorry. Oh, copy link. That's what I'll do, and then leave. Thank you, guys. All right,
Thanks,
sorry
CJ.
about this.
So whittling down here, see people, see the numbers dropping the way I saw them going up when they came in. Make sure everybody gets that link. Can't thank you guys enough. Yeah, and I love Jim's story about the title of the book. So funny.
So Andrea, it occurred to me when we were wrapping up there, I would be happy to come back and talk about how to interpret the medical literature or how to evaluate the quality of information when you Google for something.
The nerd in me just like woke up and, you know, did a little happy dance. Yeah, I love that kind of thing because people do, you know, oh, look at this, coffee cures depression. Does it? Does it really? Are we lying with statistics?
Yeah, no.
When will the next education day be? That's a great question. I think next education day is going to be in early March. Devin's asking. So I think early March. Oh, Sarah, you're on mute, but I'm presuming this is the great guy you've been married to. Let's get a look.
Unmute.
I was saying that's Joe as a Rock. He's the guy in the book.
I've
Hello,
heard lots
Joe Rock.
about you. I mean, not
Beautiful
personally.
job, everybody. I watched the whole thing. It
Oh, wow.
moves me every time I watch it, and I lived through it with her. That still moves
Yeah.
me. Nice. By the
You're a
way, I
real
had
star in the
surgery. I'm
book.
not a rock star. This is just I had carpal tunnel.
That's
surgery.
Andrea up there. Andrea is one of
Yeah,
our
Andrea did a beautiful job. It was
She's
great.
Oh,
the
thank
science
you.
advisor for the film.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
And
perhaps
Bonnie
we have
Walsh
to-
was in the crowd. She texted me. We both agreed you guys look fantastic. So
Yeah,
I'm a
it's really
former
cool.
theater major, and Bonnie's a documentary filmmaker, so we have an eye for these
We
things.
still
Yeah,
have
I thought you
16
were a
people
gardener.
on
Great.
somehow. We still have 16 people
All right.
on somehow.
Thanks,
Sorry.
everybody.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, Joe.
Nice to
I
meet
wanted
you.
Joe. I don't wanted Joe to meet Jim because he's heard so much about you over all
Yeah,
the
I
years.
was gonna say, I feel like I know him, hearing so much
Yeah,
about him. You got a whole chapter in the book. It was wonderful.
he's also, I know, and we're among friends now, but he's also got a good Midwestern sense of humor. So he says, for those of you who haven't read the book, there's a chapter dedicated to him called Joe as a Rock. And he goes, you know, and he's so proud of everything we're doing and really supports it in the book and the film. He's the only one issue I have. It should have been called Joe as a Rock, one white man's struggle with his bipolar wife.
Yeah, I mean, he could, you know.
That was a joke.
My husband. I think people might be having some trouble. Guys, are you having trouble accessing the link? If you are, you can turn off your microphone and I can talk you through it. But it's still open. Survey Monkey. Bodrick, did you get it? Just want to make sure everybody gets a chance. We like to get feedback. And then we can powwow. One new message. Yes, good. All right, you got it. All right, if you've got it, you can sign off. Once you've got the link. Still issues? What's the issue? Did you try clicking on it or did you try copying it?
Sarah, Sally, Andrea, I'm going to sign off and go outdoors.
Wonderful,
Jim,
thank
thank
you.
you.
And I can see the beautiful sunshine in the background.
That was great, Jim. Nice to
Thank
be.
you so much.
You're very welcome. Thanks for the opportunity. See you all
Okay.
later.
Thank you. Such a pleasure to meet you. Again, it's just so delightful. Bodrick, if you copy this link, will that work better? I want to make sure you get a chance to fill out the survey. If you just, you know, reverse on the link and click copy link or open link, either of those should work because I've got it up in front of me here.
Yeah, me too. Andrew, I'm going to jump too. Thank you so much. It was
Yeah,
wonderful. And thank you for
thank you
being.
so much.
For hosting.
So
It was-
delightful. If I could have told my younger self that I'd be hosting this day with Jim and with you.
yeah. Would it be possible to get a copy of the recording?
Yeah, I think there's a recording. I think there is. It says
Okay,
recording, so it's
All right.
somewhere.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, good Shabbos. Let's see. Okay, so we've got Erica. Did you get the link? I don't know if these people maybe abandoned their their Zooms. But Bodrick, if you're having trouble, you can unmute yourself. We can walk you through it. Shagufta, did you get the link? Yes? You're on mute. Let's see, unmute. Ask to unmute.
Oh, I just wanted to thank Sarah and Jim. They were just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Oh, I'm
I
so glad you
really,
enjoyed it.
yeah. And thank you for putting this together.
Of
It's
course.
always informational and, you know. So
I'm
I
so
got
glad
the link, I filled out the survey, and
Wonderful.
I'm going to leave now.
All right. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. Have a
Sure.
beautiful day.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.
Bye.
Let's see. We lost someone. Erica, you there? We've got Erica's joining. Jasmine, you got everything? I want to make sure everybody's got this before we sign off.
Sorry, I got logged out. I'm still answering the survey.
Oh, you can answer the survey. You don't have to stay on the call to answer the survey. Just wanted to make sure everyone got the link.
Not yet all. Thank you.
Yeah, you got the link?
Not all. I'm still what's this? Checking the link.
Okay, but when you click on it, it opens in your, okay, Bodrick, you got it?
Thank
I so appreciate it. Thank you, guys. Thank you. All right, then I think I'm going to close out here if there's no more questions. Everybody got it? I'm going to end the meeting. Any last questions or thoughts?
Oh yeah. Can you please send me the link again?
Oh, okay, it's right here in the chat.
I cannot see.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
On the bottom of Zoom, if you click more and you click chat, do you see the chat?
But okay. Yeah, it's not appearing. I don't know.
Do you see it
It's
now?
not. No, it's not. I don't know.
Okay, let's see this. What's your email? Can you type your email in the chat and I will send it to you?
Thank you.
Let me send this to you and
Okay. Thank you. Forever.
okay, Alika, did you receive that? Check your email. Make sure you got that. Jasmine, did you get the link as well?
Thank you very much. It's very educational.
Oh, I'm so
And
glad you enjoyed it.
I learned a lot. Yeah.
Okay,
And
good. So
it's-
and you've got the link, yeah?
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Got it. No problem. Have a beautiful
I'm gonna
day.
follow you again in Everbright. Yeah.
What?
Thank you. You too. At Everbright.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. So it just leaves Jasmine, who I think maybe walked away from her computer. What do you think, Sally?
I think that's a good guess. So,
Okay, well then I'm going to end the meeting. Everybody's got their links. Everybody's got their positive thoughts and ideas and plans. And I'm just talking now because nobody's left.
Well,
Thank you
great
so
talk.
much for doing the back channel with the chats. That was really helpful. I know
Yeah,
why it is. There's no way to make the font bigger on Zoom. Right?
Yeah, that's an accessibility issue. Someone should really do something about that.
It is. I mean, I have the Zoom, like the Zoom feature on the computer that will let me zoom in, but the Zoom font itself is so small that it's still not big enough.
It really is. And like, I don't know, Zoom chats are always a mess when you have meetings this big. So
Yeah. So, all right. So that's everybody. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Really do.
of course. Yeah, see you soon.
Bye, dear.